Yep.
Bill that the U.S. Congress should take indefinite detention by legislating these changes. One U.S. citizen, resident aliens from eligible for indefinite detention. 2 indefinite detention to perform the law of armed conflict may protect individuals who can be adequately prosecuted for criminal justice system. 3 individuals can be detained for providing substantial support only if necessary for the completion of a terrorist part of the ongoing operation of a terrorist organization or small subgroup thereof. 4 all individuals classified for prosecution by the Conduct Review Task Force report of 2009 not formally charged to receive criminal trials in federal court. Detention 1 and the NDA allows for indefinite detention. The 2013 National Defense Authorization Act gives the President vast powers to indefinitely detain suspected terrorists, including U.S. citizens, developer and prosecuting for the detainees in Guantanamo federal court back in 2013. The 2013 National Defense Authorization Act allows for the indefinite detention of anyone on charge of trial. Those provisions authorize the President all future presidents to pick up and indefinitely detain people captured anywhere around the world, even far from battlefield. The NDA restricts all ability to transfer detainees out of Guantanamo for prosecution in federal court. And even if the government never detains U.S. citizens, the public proceedings as it will. Chancing U.S. 13. The fact that the norm against detention is not currently written into law has fueled the perception that there's greater possibility of like this for domestic terrorist captures, needlessly alarming those who fear it. Connection to harm subordinate terrorism. The counterterrorism provision of the NDA will harm domestic law enforcement through it will undermine intelligence gathering, show information sharing by law enforcement, and reduce cooperation with the Muslim American community. Jenkins 12. Current intelligence collections we're going to intelligence gathering information sharing in community support. The NDA parallels that to maintain public support, the FBI has carefully cast criminal efforts as criminal investigations that lead to prosecuting and courts, not only definite detention. Those arrested in the United States proved to be treasure troves of information. How the U.S. citizens exchange information that prevents several attacks and unlimited detention, how they will less motivation to talk. Legislators could chill for information sharing among federal, state, and local law enforcement. Local police departments might be reluctant to cooperate with federal authorities in their efforts to lead to indefinite detention. With the NDA will alienate communities whose cooperation is vital. More than a third of jihadist cases and sideline the American Muslim community was the source of the incident that led to arrest. And the detention arrangement can now lead to indefinite detention. That cooperation may decline. And the NDA will damage international counterterrorism cooperation with our allies. Jenkins 12. One of the achievements in 9/11 has been the collaboration among intelligence services and law enforcement worldwide. There is critical to national security. The new law puts that cooperation in peril. Allies might not be willing to share information if doing so is perceived as exclusion filling the Guantanamo. No more countries will be willing to extradite suspects without guarantee that they will receive civilian trials. So consent and the consensus of experts constitutes nuclear has a high probability. Motivation means exists. Bill and as well. The current global regime for protecting nuclear materials is unaccountable voluntary arrangements that are against the cross borders. So it's weak link to make it inadequate to prevent nuclear terrorism. There's a consensus among leaders of the threat of nuclear terrorism is real. The IAEA and the United Nations and numerous experts have called nuclear terrorism one of the most serious threats to global security and stability. At least 4 terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda, have demonstrated the interest in using nuclear devices. It's quite possible to make an improvised nuclear device with highly enriched uranium or plutonium. There have been 18 confirmed thefts or loss of weapons using nuclear material, and a nuclear terrorist attack in essential collapse global economy, undermine civil rights, and cause nuclear escalation, leading to extinction daily time. In a larger manner, a single detonation could pose an extinction threat. Iran studies suggest that the economic loss will quickly run to the trillions of dollars and would resonate throughout the global economy for years. Cascading costs would plunge the world into deep depression. We witness the rapid and remorseless imposition of martial law military rule in virtually every sphere of American life. General Frank speculated it will cause our population to question our own constitution to make it a militarized country. Even if no evidence emerged to indicate who was behind the deed, citizens and politicians would beg for retaliation. Maps on Tehran, Pyongyang, Mecca, Riyadh. Simple to imagine the president resisting such pressures indefinitely. It's hard to envision such replies being made without anything other than nuclear weapons, and it's hard to handling the conflagration the magnitude of conflagration, the World Trade blood handling the bottomless abyss of reaction over counterreaction, and Miller's statistical analysis assigning low probability nuclear terrorism is flawed. Zimmerman 9. Miller's quite too simplistic. There seems to be no analysis to show that 50 are appropriate odds for success of each step, and it is clear that the 20 rules are not succeeding in attendance. There are the odds of some tasks are nearly 100%. Someone in the team of scientists and technicians is likely to be parties in most proposals. Miller makes other risks, and this risk analysis is flawed. Some point B, U.S. leadership. Indefinite detention authorized by the NDA undermines U.S. soft power and violates international law. 1812. NDA comes at the expense of rights, liberties, and values that this country is founded upon, violating international law and the U.S. Constitution. The bill is a large step back from a nation that provides itself a golden example of democracy. The counterterrorism provision is vague, stating that it applies to anyone who is substantially supported by Al-Qaeda or the Taliban without defining what that really means. The NDA counterterrorism provision shows a complete disregard for the rule of law and it could lead to disaster effects for our nation's standing in the world, and U.S. soft power is key to solving terrorism, pandemic stability, the 9/11. The United States also an unrivaled ability to confront terrorism, nuclear proliferation, financial stability, pandemic, disaster, product security. The United States is the indispensable nation. Soft power is crucial to sustaining the best role as leverage as a catalyst. And U.S. soft power is key to solving global warming. Ishivani 12. Global warming requires American leadership. U.S. leadership about how America seeks to engage the world's leading states in cooperation for the resolution of these issues. The more respected, the more diplomatic America's image is essential. And warming causes extinction, coming for 13. There are multiple possible tipping points. The loss of polar ice, higher temperatures of ocean turnover, reduces carbon absorption and storage, melting methane hydrates, and burning tropical forests. Once we hit our tipping point, change can happen very fast. Warming possible enough to cause human extinction, and attempts by the NDA undermine U.S. human rights leadership. Marine 12. The NDA gives the United States military extraordinary power to detain and imprison anyone, including U.S. citizens, thereby setting aside freedoms and human rights. Former U.S. President Carter pointed out that the United States can no longer speak with more authority on critical issues of human rights, and U.S. leadership is key to advancing global human rights. Mendelsohn 9. What happens in the United States has disproportionate negative policy consequences on the human rights defenders around the world. The world is losing respect for human rights and links that directly to the action of the United States. And China is why we're drawing negative lessons on the United States. The role that Obama can play in adhering to the international human rights regime may be important in institutionalizing human rights. The United States has been the balance wheel in the system for 6 years, but has not been for the last 7 years. In the United States, about the balance wheel, there's no balance wheel. And human rights violations spark global wars and harm the global economy. Track and 12. Human rights violations cause significant international external conflicts, including refugee crisis, ethnic or other conflict. Violations may cause victims to leave. Violations may create a condition in which the world result in civil war, threat to the international peace and security. Another type of externality is ideational. One state abuses a system that makes parties for another state to do so. High levels of human rights are conducive to economic growth. Economic growth in one state benefits others through trade and financial channels. Connection to solvency. First, Congress is the best actor to impose limits on indefinite detention. Courts will always remain deferential to the executive. Payment 12. The NDA detention provision affirms the executive's authority to place individuals in military custody without formal charge or charges. What action constitutes substantial support has yet to be fully defined. Congress has provided the executive with great discretion to decide whom to detain as substantial support. As the executive has an incentive to overdetain, and the courts will continue to afford great deference to detain. Such unchecked authority will lead to erroneous indefinite detention. Congress should provide a more precise definition of providing substantial support. And that definition should be consistent with the law of armed conflict and for the reasons of advance Congress. The government branch has a position to place restraints on the executive detention authority. The courts have supported and elected to continue to support the broad interpretation of the executive detention authority. The Congress can provide the most useful statutory definition of substantial support. Second, substantial support should be limited to detention for disrupting terror plots or ongoing operations. Hammond 12. Congress should frame the statute in such a way that the detention of substantial support focuses on disrupting the notion that if an individual is detained, it will disrupt a terrorist plot. Congress should focus on the executive's authority to detain substantial supporters on those who provide special support that is necessary for the completion of a terrorist plot or the ongoing operation of a terrorist organization or subgroup thereof. Third, requiring all criminal prosecutions as the first rule will reduce erroneous detention and restore legitimacy. Hathaway 13. Procedural protection in the criminal justice system promise to reduce the risk of error. Fairer, more flexible detention regime will make a more effective contribution to counter criminal operations. The government should treat criminal law detention as a first resort and consider law of war detention for only the location in which the detainee poses a continuing substantial threat. Moving toward a regime of detaining, prosecuting terrorism suspects primarily through criminal law will allow the United States to live the better angles of our nature. Fourth, civilian trials. Civilian courts have proven record in prosecuting high levels of terrorism. Ronan Law 13. Large, complex international terrorism cases have been tried in Article 3 courts for over 2 decades. The government has secured no fabric conviction against Al-Qaeda and related groups since 9/11. These cases resulted in convictions of guilty and pleas more than 90% of the time, and there have been few, if any, security breaches. Many of these cases arose from terrorist acts that were planned and carried out overseas, and the government has nonetheless been able to prosecute them by using a wide variety of evidence gathered by law enforcement intelligence methods like FIP, the Classified Information Procedure Act, that protects sensitive intelligence sources and methods. Ronan Law 13. CIPA is broadly seen as an effective tool for protecting sensitive national security information. One study analyzed that in more than 100 international terrorism cases against 300 defendants, the government has never experienced a security breach. CIPA operates at pre-trial as well as trial, enabling federal courts to redact documents and provide redacted documents and classified summaries and to ensure that defendants come out vigorous with defense without compromising national security. Sixth, empirical studies by the ABA, NYU, and Human Rights Watch prove civilian trials are equipped and effective in prosecuting terrorism cases. Slide 10. Reports by the ABA, the Center on Law and Security at NYU, and Human Rights First have offered various quantitative and qualitative assessments of the work of the Article 3 courts in post-9/11 cases, terrorism cases. The overwhelming evidence suggests that structures and procedures, as well as a substantive precedent, provide a strong and effective system of justice for terrorism. Thank you. I stand ready for cross.
What is your plan?
The plan, the U.S. Congress should restrict indefinite detention by legislating these changes. 1, U.S. citizens and resident aliens are not eligible for indefinite detention. 2, indefinite detention should conform with the law of armed conflict and be restricted to individuals who cannot be adequately prosecuted in the criminal justice system. 3, individuals can be detained for providing substantial support only if it is necessary for the completion of a terrorist plot or the ongoing operation of a terrorist organization or smaller subgroup thereof. And 4, all individuals classified for prosecution by the Guantanamo Review Task Force of 2010 and not formally charged trials.
You agree that terrorists should be detained?
We still allow for indefinite detention if that's what you're asking.
Okay, what's the NDA?
The National Defense Authorization Act.
Okay, what is that?
It was an act passed, it was 2013.
It's passed every year.
Yeah, it's passed every year, but it allows indefinite detention to anyone without charge or trial. They authorize the president to pick up an indefinite people anywhere, and that's what we're going to change.
Including citizens.
Including American citizens. That's why our plan is going to change that.
That's fine. What are your advantages?
So we have, it's like terrorism and leadership.
Okay, could you give me like a very brief description of both?
So terrorism, the NDAA, this is the Jenkins 12. It harms intelligence gathering, information sharing, and like cooperation from communities, and that'll lead to terrorists getting nuclear weapons.
Okay.
We won't be able to prosecute, and that'll lead to terrorism. And then the second one is leadership, and there are a few in there. So one of them is like human rights leadership. One of them is global warming.
Okay. What are your harms?
For
For both.
the harm, like the impacts.
Yeah.
The impacts are like nuclear war for terrorism, and then for the other one, it's extinction from global warming, and human rights violations leads to war,
Did you say global warming?
and hurts the global economy. Yeah.
Okay, so how does global warming affect your war powers?
No, that's an impact.
Impact? Oh, okay.
If we don't enact our plan, we won't be able to set a good precedent in solving global warming, and we're at a tipping point now. That what? Sorry. Yeah, it's soft.
Okay. How will you implement your plan?
To the Congress. The Congress should restrict.
Okay. And then how does terrorism link to indefinite detention?
How does terrorism link to indefinite detention?
Yes.
I don't know what you mean by that.
What classifies someone as a terrorist?
Oh, there's a list published every year by the government of who is on a terrorist group. I guess it would be under.
That's time.
Okay.
Do you need prop?